So let's talk about the preseason. Today we got to see some preseason games, which we didn't know. I'm going to be talking about, yesterday's game about the Lakers and Warriors. Keep in mind, these are preseason, so these do not count for anything that has to do with the NBA season. This is just, to have more games to get the flow going and so people can get into that, in season feeling. Yesterday, the Lakers and Warriors played. They played, I think it was in Oracle. Yes, it was in the Warriors arena, and they basically got to run out their teams of their starters. I just want to say that the Lakers, it was without LeBron. I just want to say that. Obviously, they're resting him or whatever. And with the Warriors, it was I think, without Draymond, if I'm not mistaken. And so I just want you guys to keep that in mind because Draymond's injured and the Warriors were running it with Chris Paul and Stephen Curry on the floor. So let's talk about the game. The game was pretty interesting, as we saw through the game. It was obvious that the Warriors had something going. Even though the Lakers led early, you just see that their confidence was through the roof. And this was mostly due to the fact that Chris Paul, especially originally in the game, was looking like exactly what Chris Paul wanted to do. Obviously, in preseason games, stars don't play more than like 13 minutes if we're being honest. They just play so the fans can see them because, no team wants to not put their star out there. But like with the Warriors, you saw that their whole starting lineup, except for Andrew Wiggins, played 13 minutes. This was just, to throw guys out there so people could see it, so people could actually grasp what was happening. And it was really good seeing these teams out there. With Chris Paul, he played 13 minutes. He had a +6 plus minus, and he dropped 6 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds with 2 turnovers. It was really good. He was on triple-double watch if he kept playing more. And he just hit jumpers and made the game look easy for the team, which is exactly what they want him to do. When it comes to a full game where they're going to play a lot of minutes and, where it comes down the stretch, all they want is Chris Paul to make life easier for their other players, like Jonathan Kuminga, which in 24 minutes scored 24 points on 8 for 14 field goal percentage and 4 from 8 from 3. So Kuminga had himself a hell of a game, and he had just been looking at himself consistently hitting shots, hitting free throws, going to the line. He got 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and even though he did get 5 turnovers, he did have a +4 plus minus on the floor. Some other guys I want to say, Rudy Gay is on this team now, Gary Payne II. That a lot of people get confused with the trades and what happens. And people, always have a tendency of forgetting, that some moves happen throughout the offseason and maybe right before the preseason. But now we could really see, what's happening with these teams, as even though some players are missing, like Corey Joseph, Draymond Green, Rodney McGruder didn't play, just like Scottie Pippen Jr., and some other players like LeBron and Austin Reeves for the Lakers, we could see that most of their lineup is there. I want to say that Jackson Hayes, he looked really good. Cam Reddish looked terrible on the floor for the Lakers. He didn't hit a single shot. He had 1 point on 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, but he had 3 turnovers and 1 foul, and he was a -22 on the floor. I want to say that Gabe Vincent looked rough. He had the usual Gabe Vincent where he shoots amazingly from 3, but then his field goal percentages is kind of trash. And I want to say that guys who we expected to be good, like Vando and Rui, were as good as expected, and they played really well in my opinion, like for the fact that they only played so many minutes in a preseason game. What I do want to say is shout out to Max Christie for the Lakers. He shot 6 for 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, hit all his free throws, which was 1, had an assist, 2 rebounds, and meanwhile only having 1 turnover, and he ended up with 15 points. I do want to say shout out to him because he's been a young guard who's been developed throughout the system of the Lakers, and they've had a lot of success with these young guys, the Lakers, especially with the ones that they traded away recently for Anthony Davis. And I do want to say that, honestly, shout out to Max Christie, shout out to guys like Christian Wood, who played the first game for the Lakers, even if he had a bad performance. And shout out to all the guys who on their new team are coming out right now, like Jackson Hayes and Max Christie, who are young guys who are now in a championship contender for like the first time in their careers. And it really has become a big thing for them, because being in these moments, even though you don't realize it, it's definitely something to be able to, play for a team like the Lakers, especially when you have LeBron and AD on your side, because you get a different type of experience than if you play in like a team which is out of the playoffs every year. For the Warriors, it's the same thing because they're also a championship contender, and both of these teams have won championships in this decade. But like for the Warriors, I want to say shout out to Moses Moody. I already said Jonathan Kuminga, but also shout out to Curry for, being Curry. He hit 2 threes. He had 50% from the field. His 3-point percentage wasn't that good, but I want to say shout out to him for getting 3 steals in 13 minutes. Also an assist and 2 rebounds in 13 minutes. And shout out to Moses Moody. He's a kid who's been doubted a lot. People don't really believe that he can actually be a good player on a championship team, like a real rotational player. And he's been proving players and people wrong with that one. It's not like, I'm not going to tell you that Moses Moody is a starter right now or even the 6th man of this team, but I do want to say that Moses Moody's a guy with a lot of potential who we need to look out for these teams. What I do want to say from the game itself is that this just shows the fact that both of these teams are great. They both sat really important pieces. They both had players who were injured and were out. And both of these teams have really exciting off seasons, which allowed them to be able to, make it make sense with the pieces that they already had. Meanwhile, they didn't give up too much, and they found themselves in a position to face each other in the preseason. And even though they were half facing each other, they did manage to make great basketball. Seeing these two teams be able to go out there, Western Conference semifinals matchup last year, and be able to make history. As LeBron officially is the oldest player in the league. But with all that being said, I do want to say that shout out to this team, shout out to the Lakers, shout out to the Warriors, shout out to this match. Even though the Warriors did win by 17 points and the Lakers did get smoked, I just want to say that both of them put on a really good match, and I really enjoyed it, especially from seeing these young guys, really being able to do their own thing. I do want to say that Chris Paul is looking really dangerous on the Warriors, because I know that I had my doubts of how that's going to work. But Chris Paul is looking extremely dangerous if he's going to keep doing what he's doing. And maybe they've unlocked what Chris Paul's actually supposed to be at this old age. Maybe the Warriors, maybe with Chris Paul, this is what he needed all along, is what I'm trying to say. Because Chris Paul has always been a guy who's been forced to create his own shot, make a shot for teammates, run an entire offense, plus be the best player and play good defense. But maybe with the Warriors, with this system of Chris Paul and Steph Curry, where they go back to back and they can both play, make, score, create, and maybe this is what people needed out of Chris Paul all along. The Suns, even at their old age, they still managed to consistently put a lot of strain on Chris Paul, because DeAndre Ayton in the big games would not be who he needed to be. So when Chris Paul's play, Chris Paul played the same way, it turned out being worse, because even if he choked or if he played well, his team wasn't around him, and maybe the Warriors figured that out and are now going to be able to unlock Chris Paul.